What if I tell you rejection is just sometimes a few seconds of discomfort? Welcome back to the Happiest Sad Person podcast. I'm Alessandra, your host. And this week we're going to be continuing kind of the new format I've recently started because I feel like it works better having a plan for the podcast than not. And I'm someone, if you've listened for any amount of time, that needs consistency, goals, and outline, um, tangible things to stick to so that I can actually be a reliable adult. So that's a little insight about me if you didn't know that yet, if you're a new listener or watcher, if you're watching on YouTube. Um, which I recommend if you just do the audio episodes, maybe give it a follow on YouTube at the Happiest Sad Person podcast there. But for this week, I'm going to start with what I've been listening to. The first song is by Jax Anderson and Joe P, and it's called Changes. And I've listened to it for a while now. I want to say probably, if you're listening to audio, you can't tell, but if you're watching my posture, I'm trying to get better posture. So I digress. The song Changes is something I've been listening to for probably over a year now, but it feels so relevant now and it feels um I don't know, even more important now. And once you hear the lyrics, you'll sort of understand why. But the beat is amazing. Again, it's a slower song. I've kind of been bouncing between like upbeat 60s music and then like slower, more modern music. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So the lyrics, it begins with, I've been running from my childhood. I've been running from the sun. Eventually, it all catches up. I've been living in the darkness for way too long. I didn't recognize where I belong. Come on, if that is not most people's journey whenever they kind of have a dark soul of the night, I don't know what is. And especially for me, having so much change in such a short period of time, and with my treatment resistant depression sort of alleviating the line, I've been living in the darkness for way too long, it just hit me at another level and it made me re-fall in love with this song. And it's made running more enjoyable because it reminds me it's okay that I'm back at the beginning. I can move beyond this. I can get better at it. So it's a really good, again, middle of the run song, similar to the song I chose last week. And then the rest of the song goes, I've been going through some changes. I've been doing rearrangements, going through a transformation. So have some mercy on me. I've been going through some changes. I've been turning new pages. No one said that it'd be painless. So have some mercy on me. And again, relevant to anybody that's just fixing, changing, going through something in their lives. And they're just asking for patience, for mercy. Again, some religious undertones, or I guess overtones, if it's fairly overt there. And I just really like the song, and I felt like it's something everyone could listen to and connect with and enjoy, both the lyrics and the beat. It's sort of a universal bop, if you will. And then another song that I found that is a similar-ish feeling, but way more upbeat. The beginning of the song I prefer to the ending of the song, but very, very catchy. And it's called Scared to Start by Michael Marcagi. And the chorus begins with, and she said, don't you wait to try it. Are you scared to find it? And do you want to take my broken heart? Are you scared to start? I mean, the story of my entire life is being afraid to start anything, the fear of failure, the fear of not doing something perfectly or properly or being bad, because I never learned how to be bad at anything. I was either good at it or I didn't do it at all. So I'm trying to now learn or relearn how to be bad at things and embrace that sort of failure and get over that fear of starting. And then the second verse, let's lay in the dead grass, stare at the stars, run away and live out of cars and bars. Let's just leave here because there's nothing left to see. And if that's wrong, let's make it right. And if you leave, just give me one more night because there's no one that you'll find that's quite like me. It's a little bit of a hybrid of a love song, an advice song, a kind of existential song of universality. So just kind of a good song to listen to. And again, the beginning of it, very catchy, very upbeat. Reminds me of maybe the Lumineers a bit. It's a little indie. It's a little like 2015 to 18 indie pop. Highly recommend. So when it comes to what I've been reading, I'm continuing on with the book, The Architecture of Happiness. And I know that last week I spoke on kind of the initial ways that architecture was brought into our modern world. We moved from classical to Gothic and then to what we're more familiar now with that would be considered modern architecture. And I mentioned before there was the Villa Savoy that was sort of a failure. It was a model modern home that had a leaking roof and lots of issues and sort of was not what it was all cracked up to be. It proved that modern architecture really wasn't the perfect answer to how a home should be built. So there's the question of what is the right form of architecture? This week, it's kind of realizing that you have to go back to the drawing board, where at this point, architects and engineers alike, we're still feuding over what's the right answer when it comes to architecture and how we build our homes. And the book goes into the B3 chair, which is another modern marvel the world gave us. And it's what you would refer to as a common mid-century design, even though it was actually created in the mid-1920s, which I was, again, very surprised that modern homes and design started in the early 1900s. And his chair was appreciated. It was definitely inspired by sort of the new technology. It had a metal frame and feels very modern, but it still didn't solve the issue because the main goal of a chair is to hold a human's body weight. And that could be done just as well with a wooden chair, with a Queen Anne chair, which was a very famous, popular design of chair. So their designers, architects, engineers were again uncertain, even in the furniture world, of what the right answer was. And so when it came to the right kind of design, a man named John Ruskin comes to mind with his idea that architecture's goal and sort of purpose and how it works is that it speaks to us. So I'm going to read a little quote from the book. Buildings speak, and on topics which can be readily discerned. They speak of democracy or aristocracy, openness or arrogance, welcome or threat, a sympathy for the future or a hankering for the past. So whenever you choose a building's design, you're also choosing to live the kind of like life that's attached to that style of building, to live and breathe amongst its walls and be the most actualized version of said location. And I was kind of extrapolating on this idea more and realized that it's why brutalist architecture can spark rage in us, and a cathedral ceiling can invoke awe and tears of revelry. One can represent control and discipline, the other a belief in something beyond us. Architecture is all around us, and yet we rarely analyze if it's a part of our existential pursuit, of our desire to be the most self-actualized versions of ourselves. And personally, this is why I think ugly buildings, copy and paste suburbs make me so frustrated. And it's because they're not fulfilling anyone's highest self. They're devoid of an energy other than the corporatization and money making of developers. They're hollow of any specific meaning or plan for the person's life there. There's no thought made about how this person will live there, what it's saying about the person. It's how many homes can we fit into one square acre of land. And I think it's so sad that our architecture has become so empty when it used to be so beautiful and has the potential to be so beautiful. And I think we've lost the plot in how we build on our particular plot of land. And we have to remember that what we build is an extension of us and a showing of what life we want to perfectly live. And a house that's a mishmash of different styles and types. And there's no sidewalks on the outside, and the inside is stark and gray, and the carpets are an off-white, and there's no storytelling with the carvings of wood or the doorknobs, or the hinges of the doors are not any sort of level of intricate. There's nothing there that we can grasp onto when we enter that person's house to gauge how that person wants to live and what they're trying to tell us through their home. And I think that's very heartbreaking. Yeah, I tried to write that all down as like a mini script because I wanted to make sure that I got out that idea succinctly and that it made sense, because I think it's an important point, and I highly recommend everyone reading this book because it makes you think so critically about all the buildings around you and what you want, where you live and where you work and where you play, what you want it to say about you and what it says about your community. So the audiobook I'm listening to, Atomic Habits, speaks about marginal gains. If you've never heard of them, it's basically getting a little bit better over a period of time so that all the things you do to get better compound and it makes a major difference at the end. So the example in the book was that the British bike racing team was sort of a laughing stock. In the UK, they weren't winning any major Tour de France races. They weren't really successful at all. And even the bike manufacturer in Britain wouldn't offer them bikes because they didn't want to be associated with the losing team. And so the team decided, or the coach decided for the team, that they would improve each factor of their training by 1%. And they did so successfully. They had more aerodynamic uniforms. They trained differently. They ate differently. They changed every little facet just marginally. And the team was able to be worthy competitors in the Tour de France. And they proved that this idea really does work. And definitely Atomic Habits is built on that premise. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I believe if you get 1% better every day, then you are something like 30% better by the end of the year. I don't even know how that math works because it doesn't make sense to me, but it's something like that. And so little ways of improving yourself can make a big, big difference over time, especially over a year if you're really mindful. And that's something I want to bring into this podcast and just improving my life. So implementing this idea from this book, because everything I read and consume, I want to enact in my real life, be it learning the concept and just simply having that knowledge, or putting these ideas to the test. So when it comes to marginal gains, as I watch Andrew Huberman Lab podcasts, which teach about different parts of the body and how to improve sleep and how to be healthy when it comes to hormones and all sorts of things, I'm going to be figuring out what matters to me from what I learn and implementing it from something from each episode into my life. So and these ideas are connected to science, and Andrew Huberman is a ophthalmologist and I think I did this last week too, neurobiologist, neuroscientist, neuro something or other. And so the changes I make are rooted in reality, they're rooted in science, and that's important to me when it comes to physical health. So moving on in Atomic Habits, the next chapter focuses on change coming from identity, how you see yourself. So the book says the ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of your identity. It's a simple two-step process. Decide the type of person you want to be, prove it to yourself with small wins. So your goal is to behave in asking yourself, how can you be a runner? How can you be a writer if you're trying to become something? Have that be a part of your identity. Say when you're doing these things, I am a runner. And in the inverse, if you're trying to quit a habit, you can say, how can I identify as a non-smoker? So the concept can work both ways. So the book goes on to say, becoming the best version of yourself requires you to continuously edit your beliefs and to upgrade and expand your identity. So to really make tangible, long-lasting change in your life, you really have to make it connected to who you are as a person. And you constantly have to be up-leveling that version of you. So to take this on as an exercise, I am going to decide who I am via a Cal Newport video. He wrote a book called Digital Minimalism, and he has a podcast. And I saved a video of his, I want to say maybe in August, about changing your life in like 4 months or something. I'll link the video down below. And one of the first sort of assignments is to figure out what your values are. And I keep putting off doing this because it's kind of a tough ask of really delving deep into yourself and understanding what your values are. But I think I really can't understand how to make change in my life and decide who I am and have that identity change if I don't know what my values are. So I'm going to watch the video and do the exercise. And if you'd like, do it along with me. I'll again have the video linked below. And I'm going to decide what I value in myself, in my friends, in my family, and in those who I date. So kind of hits every facet of human beings in my life. So when I was thinking about this, the first thing I came up with was I value like-mindedness and a shared view and how to make the world better and our lives more enjoyable. So it was kind of like a little thing, first thing that came off the top of my head. So as I do the assignment, I'll continue to think of what I value in others and what I resonate with and what people that I really admire and people that I've really enjoyed, how do they behave? How do they carry themselves? And you then go from there. Even fictional characters, use them as an example of what facets of them you admire, because often they're sort of exaggerated versions of us. And then the next book I've been reading is Ohio. And I have just been slowly slogging through this book. It's kind of a slower read. I'm still in the slower part. But ironically, someone who test read my book, my brother's partner, actually is reading the same book independently. I did not know this. And she reached out to me to say that it's very similar to my book and its premise and sort of a commentary on suburban society. And so I thought that was kind of funny that we were reading the same book at the same time and she found the same comparisons to my own book. So that was like a good sign because I respect the writer of this book a lot because he's a very compelling storyteller. And so again, it was high praise and it made me all the more curious to continue through the book to see how it's connected to my book, selfishly and vainly. That's a motivator. But again, I'm still slogging through the slow build. And she also said that the female character who narrates a chapter is similar to my writing and has similar grievances to the main character that I have in my book. And so I'm just continuing through using that as more motivation to get through the book, because I've been slacking when it comes to reading. I really need to get into enjoying reading more and having it be more of a daily integral process and be able to devour more pages at one sitting and not need to take a break. And I want to be really compelled by what I'm reading. And I just feel like I can't focus enough to even get into the groove with reading. So I'm really pushing myself to get back into that, because I used to be able to read a Harry Potter book in a day when I was like, I don't know, 11. So I really should be able to do that same thing, if not better, because as you get older, your reading comprehension, the pace at which you read should improve. So, what I've been watching? Nothing. I still, again, going back to attention span, I still cannot focus long enough to watch anything. I can do all this other shit, but I can't sit and watch TV or anything like that. I don't know what's wrong with me. So with this, I just need to rip off the Band-Aid like I've been doing with everything else and just read. I mean, not read, oh my God, and just watch a movie, watch a TV show. So I think this week is really just going to be watch something. Even if I can only focus for 15 minutes on a show, do it. And I know this is a silly, silly thing, because most people are like, get over yourself. It's TV, be able to watch it. It's a movie. But I don't know what it is. I can't. And it's very bothersome to me, because I used to really love watching things and really enjoy the process of watching how the actor delivered a line or the cinematography. And I want to get back to that. So what I've been learning, this is the new topic I'm adding. I'm taking a class called CitiesX, the past, present, and future of city life. And this is through Harvard X. This is their online free schooling platform. It's through edX. And so I think Harvard and Yale maybe and a few other schools have classes. I'll link this class below, and then you can go on their website and kind of see if any spark your fancy. But I really am enjoying this class so far. And some of the things I've learned thus far, it's all about city planning, urban design, sort of the history of cities. And it goes into why the US is not the capital cities of the US are not in major population hubs, and sort of how that differs from European cities, where you can see the influence of the major population hubs and the concept of the governments and the power controlling the capital cities, with big, beautiful cathedrals and palaces and boulevards named after leaders that are really beautiful, with dividers in the middle and trees, and basically a well thought out city, because it's connected to the seat of power. It's connected to government. So there's a plan for the city. Whereas in the US, there were states' rights. The US did not want to mirror the UK, and so they forged a different path. And it often leads to a very disjointed urban design plan. And so that's been very interesting to just kind of get the basics on. And I really want to keep going through lessons and see what else I can learn. And then I've been listening to a Huberman Lab episode about the nervous system. And one of the interesting things I learned was that up until the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was sort of a basic understanding that the nervous system was comprised of one nerve cell that was sort of transporting electricity throughout the body. When in reality, we obviously know that there's bunches of neurons that are sort of a train that transports electricity, and that's how most of our bodily sensations occur. And I did not know that. And so again, I'm really just enjoying learning new things, and I don't know, actually following through and continuing to learn new things and actually make this a practice in my life. So this podcast is focused on sort of the meat of the podcast now is focused on the concept of rejection. So I am someone that is a rejection phobe. I don't know what the technical term for it is, but since being a young child, have experienced a lot of rejection. I was sort of universally disliked, made fun of a lot. I just felt so rejected for who I am as a person, for what I brought to the table, for any time I would try and just be myself. And so when you're kind of met with that constant and kind of bitter rejection from peers, kids slightly older than me, and then even like the adults in my life, teachers, other people's parents, it feels so overbearing and it makes rejection feel so much bigger than it is. And so one of my goals for this year, and I've already started, is another practice I'm trying to do, trying to make as many good changes in my life as possible. Again, you gotta make identity change. I am someone who is, impenetrable to rejection. And I want to take it less personally. I want it to just be something that rolls off my back and I just move on to the next thing. I don't want rejection to eat me up inside and make me afraid of going for opportunities. So I also think it's made me very risk adverse. I'm fearful of taking the plunge because I didn't have a balance of rejection and acceptance. It was basically rejection. And so when you don't have that balance, you don't really get to see the other side of what's to offer if something does go your way, if someone does accept. And I think that's a really important thing that everyone should get in their lives. So I recently saw a video too where people say that they mostly reject things that they didn't do. They didn't regret things that they did do. So it's kind of like what's the phrase? Do the thing and then beg for forgiveness afterward. So I don't want to have regrets of things that I've wanted to do, but didn't because of fear, because of getting rejected. And I feel like that's been something that's held me back a lot in my life and is very sad. And now it's gotten to be embarrassing that rejection is keeping me stifled. And I need to, especially in the writing world, in hopefully moving into the creative industry, hopefully moving into the film industry, directing and creating things, that's a lot of rejection. It's even more rejection than I've already had. So I need to be able to thicken my skin. So the other thing that I've realized is that in mentally preparing myself for this is that the worst thing that can happen is that somebody says no. I can always survive a no. It's really not going to be a life or death situation. I just have to be able to withstand the no. And I watched a video about a guy that really tried this rejection therapy. I think that's what it's been called recently. And he said when he withstood the first rejection, he was like, okay, I can survive this. And then it got easier and easier and easier. So it's really jumping into the cold water, jumping into the cold plunge and knowing what it feels like, getting through it. And then the second time is easier, third time, easier, 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 because you're just getting yourself acclimated. And it's like an exposure therapy. It's like if you have a fear, the no will sting less, especially if I have more opportunities on the table, if I'm trying different things, if I'm also a willful, oh my God, if I am a willful participant in this, I'm the one seeking the rejection. I think that level of control makes all the difference. And so far, I've only have one rejection. So the goal is 100 rejections. I was accepted once and rejected once. It was a social endeavor. First reach out was a rejection, second reach out was a success. So I feel, and that's a little more challenging for me. So as a social thing. So I feel, I don't know, kind of proud of myself that I already have one rejection under my belt and one acceptance. So I'm 1 for 1 at the moment, but my goal is really get to that 100. So that means I'm going to be seeking out asking people to do interviews for podcasts. I have a list of people I want to reach out to. Asking for opportunities, maybe submitting to literary magazines, reaching out to writing agents, really putting myself out there so that I can get rejected. And I really want to turn this thing around and be looking forward to the rejection, because I'm like, great, I can put this on my list. That gets me closer to my 100, and I keep seeking more opportunities. And that will hopefully be part of the thing that changes my life. So I highly recommend too, if you end up doing this, let me know. Comment down below if you've already have a rejection thus far, or an acceptance, or a hybrid of both. And DM me on Instagram if you have either or, at the Happiest Sad Person podcast. So I thought I'd end the podcast with quotes about rejection, or like fear of rejection. And I found a quote, or a poem, I guess I should say, because it's from Anne Sexton, and I have a book of her poetry, so I'm assuming she's mostly a poet. This is what rejection feels like to me. Do you like me? No answer. Silence bounced, fell off his tongue, and sat between us, and clogging my throat. It slaughtered my trust. It tore cigarettes out of my mouth. We exchanged blind words, and I did not cry. I did not beg, but blackness filled my ears. Blackness lunged in my heart, and something that had been good, a sort of kindly oxygen, turned into a gas oven. Anne Sexton. So, yeah, that's, you may disagree and you may think rejection's no big deal. For me, because it has such a connotation with an endless stream of rejections, that's how it feels like to me. So, another quote on rejection. One may not always know his purpose until his only option is to monopolize in what he truly excels at. He grows weary of hearing the answer no time and time again. So he turns to and cultivates, monopolizes in his one talent which others can not possibly subdue. Then, beyond the crowds of criticism and rejection, the right people recognize his talent. Among them, he finds his stage. Chris Jammy Philosophy. So you just kind of hope that you get rejected, you get too good for them not to notice you, and then you are accepted into the fold of people that actually matter and like what you do. So for me, in the creative world, that's the perfect example of the pursuit of rejection, the acceptance of it, the sort of 5 stages of grief when it comes to rejection, and then you work so hard, like I said, that they can't ignore you. You're so good that rejection, for the most part, it's like water off a duck's back. So another quote. This manuscript of yours that has just come back from another editor is a precious package. Don't consider it rejected. Consider that you've addressed it to the editor who can appreciate my work, and it has simply come back stamped, not at this address. Just keep looking for the right address. Barbara Kingsolver. And so this is, again, a little more writing specific, so it felt relevant to me, but it just means not at this time, or this isn't the right opportunity. And that's how I also want to view rejection, is that this is not for me, and I only want people that are 100% hell yes with whatever I'm doing or whoever I am. And you know, that also takes getting into a certain level of skill, and I know that, and that's where I really want to improve and sort of put in my 10,000 hours of things that I care about. But it also falls under the category for me of all in due time. What's meant to be will come to me, and it may be a little fantastical of thinking, but I think that's the kind of thinking that makes people succeed and survive, especially in really tough, brutal industries. Another quote, being angry, resentful, or saddened by rejection can suck the sweetness out of acceptance. Charles F. Glassman. Again, I do not want to be bitter by the time I have success. I also know that without, the classic idea of no mud, no lotus, you can't appreciate the sweetness of rejection or the sweetness of acceptance if you don't have the bitterness of rejection. And I know I need both, but I'd prefer more success over rejection. But again, all in due time. And finally, what if I tell you rejection is just sometimes a few seconds of discomfort? Emmanuel Apsetti. So that's the ultimate thing I need to keep in my mind when I ask for something or ask someone of something or put myself out there. It's a few seconds. It's a few seconds of me feeling that itch and the anticipation and living in the anxiety. And then it's over. And the more I get used to that feeling and then maybe eventually even enjoy that kind of rush, because I am someone that enjoys that kind of rush, I think that my life will really change. And I look forward to that. And I look forward to this challenge. So also, if you have any suggestions or ideas of things that I could do, as sort of rejection, things to put on my list to try for rejection. And I don't want to ask people for free things. That's not something that it feels valuable to me. It has to be a rejection that is relevant to my life or skill building or opportunities or something in the content creation space, something that's really or a social thing or like trying hobbies or something that's not asking people for free things, because I see those a lot on YouTube and I respect them, but with people's personal financial situations and how tough the economy is right now, that's really not a road I want to go down. I don't want to be asking people if they don't have it themselves. I don't think that's quite fair. So yeah, I look forward to seeing any feedback you guys leave for this episode. I appreciate you all listening. I am so grateful for all the kind people who DM me and say really nice things. That still is so mind-blowing to me that people are so nice. And yeah, follow me on Instagram at the Happiest Sad Person Podcast. I also have a TikTok under the same name. Subscribe on YouTube. Yeah, and don't forget that when you say no to somebody, ask yourself if it's something you really can't do, if somebody's asking you for a favor and very genuine, or it's something you just don't want to do. If it's something that could really help them or make their day, that could be the difference of somebody being able to go throughout the rest of their life and ask for help. So if you're capable of saying yes to somebody to sort of stave off rejection, if you're in the place to help, say yes. So yeah, I'm kind of trying to be in the more optimistic sector of life right now. So yeah, say yes. All right, thanks guys.